I was talking to someone that is actually one of the few listeners that watches these things, and they're talking about how we kind of got the short end of the stick. And I thought about something else. I was in choir. I was in choir in 6th and 7th grade. I was in it in, I want to say, all through high school. And my sister was in it. And I'm probably an average at best singer. I've got decent pitch, good hearing, but I wasn't in choir because I like to sing, like some people. Some people might have actually been in there because they like to sing. More power to them, but the reason I was in there was the idle time. Like, we got a good over an hour every day just to sit around and talk, do schoolwork. Like, imagine at your job, you just get an hour a day that isn't your lunchtime just to do absolutely nothing now. It'd be unheard of. But we had that in school, and it was terrific. And we valued that time. And at one point, they changed things up at the new high school we went to, and we didn't get that time, and everybody was angry. But it changed up very quickly. But anyway, what I want to talk about is how we kind of got the short end of the stick when it came to trips. Because my mom, when I was growing up, would be like, oh, the band went to the United Kingdom and met the Queen. Or they did this, that, and the other. And then my sister's class was like, we're going to do America Sings in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York. Who wants to do that? I think my sister wanted to go to New York, because everybody does for one reason or another. And my mom was like, hell yeah! You want to go to New York? I'll go with you. And I think my dad was just like, well, whatever. Because earlier in the year, my 7th grade class was going to go to D.C. And my mom was like, well, hell yeah, you're going, and I'm going too. So my mom was pretty gung-ho going to D.C. or going to New York. Which I think she went to D.C. as a kid, or not as a kid, as like a teenager, and wanted to go back. But unfortunately, 9/11 happened, and that kind of put an end to our D.C. trip plans, because I think we're going to go in like November. But my sister got to go to New York, and from what I understood, it wasn't as exciting a trip as you expect, because they weren't just going to be tourists. Like, they were going for something to perform, and they had like 8-hour-long practices. It was cold, and you'd get sweaty, and then you'd get cold again. People were falling out, and some of the teachers, like the choir director, would get mad, my sister said, because people would skip practices. It's like, what do you expect them to do? They're in New York. But my sister, my mom was a chaperone. She wasn't missing any of the practices because they didn't have time for anything. Like, the day they left, they went to like the big music store you used to see on like VH1 and MTV. My mom like did some exploring. I think she went to Chinatown and stuff like that. But anyway, enough about that trip. When I came along, I guess the New York trip had soured our choir instructor on other trips, because we didn't go anywhere that was outside of the state. Now, we'd drive to like Montgomery for stuff, but we never went to like an event or anything like that. We never did a big trip. Which, whatever. I probably wouldn't have gone, because I think a lot of it had to do with show choir, and I didn't dance. Because this is pretty funny, talking about show choir. So, Frank and Charles were both in show choir. And my junior year and Frank's junior year and Charles' senior year, Frank was like, all right, Charles, I'm quitting. He said, I'm quitting show choir. I've had enough of it. He said, I can't do it anymore. He said, I'm quitting. And Charles was like, don't you do it. If you quit, I quit. And then another guy walked up, if y'all two quit, I quit. And thus killed the last year of my high school show choir. So that was pretty funny. But anyway, on to the big thing. We went to a new high school. Like I said before, we consolidated and had a larger choir class, had 2 classes, and it was a big deal, but we were working on it. And it comes toward the end of the year, and they're like, hey, next year we're going to Europe. And I'm just like, what the hell? We don't go anywhere. And then as soon as I graduate, they're going to go. You know, it gets better. They were like, all right, we need y'all to help raise money for this trip. So you got to sell this stuff. And I'm like, you want me to raise money for a trip I don't even get to go on? What the hell with those other people getting to go to Europe? They get to go anywhere. And the sub came by. She's like, well, here's this thing. Y'all need to sell it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So I was graduating in some time. She's like, well, you got to take it. I said, no, ma'am, I'm not going to sell that. And the assistant choir teacher, who happened to be my middle school teacher, found me in the lunchroom. She said, oh, hey, I got your stuff for you to sell. I said, I am not selling this. I said, I am not help raise money for a trip I don't even get to go on. And she wasn't having it. She was wanting to write me up. She sent me to the assistant principal and was like, look, I am not selling this. I am not helping raise money for a trip I don't even get to go on. And he's like, I understand how you feel. He said, you don't have to do it. But she was trying, she tried to fight me, but that wasn't going to work. I was 18. I graduated in 2 weeks. What are you going to do? Nothing. But we kind of got the short end of the stick there. And I'll talk about another way we got it in another video. But that's what happened with choir.